Joy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, excited to
And
be here.
yeah, so let's just start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about like your background and how you wound up finding your way to data analytics.
Well, I think you could almost say my entire career's been in data, but nobody called it that in the
Mhm.
90s. So when I went to college, I got a degree in math, and then I went to grad school for applied math and computer science. And in my undergrad degree, I actually did a machine learning project as a senior in order to graduate. And so I was doing stuff way back then, but the computers back then didn't really, outside of like the government, the computers didn't really handle that. So I ended up doing a lot of Excel models, Lotus 1, 2, 3 models. Yes, that's how old
Mhm.
I am. And I think I just gravitated to that kind of work and found my way working with databases and then kind of growing my career from there. So I might be one of the original unicorns out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you qualify, I have to say. Well, and by the way, Lotus 123 wasn't that long ago, so for what it's worth.
That's what we keep telling ourselves.
So tell us how Cornerstone Data got its start.
So I moved here in 2008 to Wichita, and I'd had some consulting on the side when we lived in Colorado. And my father-in-law, who had Tech Systems Group at the time, had used us for some projects. And secretly, I thought he just was using us for projects so I'd bring his grandson to visit grandma while I worked for him. But after we moved here, I really couldn't decide what I wanted to do. None of the clients I had there could come with me because they were all in-person training and in-person work. And so I wasn't sure what to do. And I thought about a lot of different things, including teaching, but my father-in-law and I had lunch one day, and we'd been talking for a few months, and he said, "You should start a company." And I said, "What do I know about a company? That seems like a dumb idea." And he said, "No, you should you should start a company. I've looked for people who have your skills around here, and I haven't found anybody. I haven't found a company like that, and I think you have a niche that you could help people." So I thought about it for a while, and then I decided, you know, what's the harm? If I try it and it doesn't go anywhere, what's the risk? So I hung out my shingle. I started teaching database and ethics at a local college as a adjunct, which helped me find some clients. And then the company just sort of took off from there. So my son was just starting school, so I had some time on my hands, but I really wanted to be involved with him. And I really didn't want it to grow that fast, but it grew faster. It's always grown faster than I was ready for. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about that growth curve and like how you wound up where the company is now.
sure. So, we were doing, in the early days of the projects, we were doing a lot of custom software in order to capture data for people so that we could create the reporting and analytics they needed. And so that and we and I only and I mainly focused on smaller to mid-sized businesses because there's just a niche where there weren't people that were serving them. Then and so we kept growing and getting jobs and grew a team up. And I had to hire, I'm not a developer, I'm a mathematician. So I'm a data person. And so I had to hire developers to help mentor the younger people. And there was this place in 2018, I think, when I lost my senior developer. And I started thinking about the work we were doing and the changing landscape of the industry. And you could see more interest in data in this region than there'd been before, and a lot more competition in the custom software space. Plus, on top of that, you have all these no code environments starting to be built. So I just was thinking about it and thinking about I don't really want to have to be a developer in order for my company to grow. And I really want to try and get us back to data analytics. So I just decided to change the name of the company to be more focused on data, to stop looking for custom software development work, and to stop hiring developers. And so as they would leave, we would refocus and try and get more clients. So that's where I almost killed the company. I think
Oh,
I was thinking my partner left because of a health issue, and in 2019 I thought we're not going to make it. I'm not sure we're going to make it. And then one day somebody called and asked if we could help with Power BI. And it just started growing from there. We started working with more and more clients. And so, the growth has been really spectacular. And so we're doing better than we ever did in our custom software development days.
yeah. And so how big's your team now?
The data team here that Tech and I share is 10 people on the Cornerstone side, and then they have two more for a specific customer. And I think we're looking for another one right now, maybe two. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I've been observing and it's been nuts. And
Yeah.
some of my favorite graduates are now working for you, and that's been a real
Yeah, we
pleasure.
love them. We love
They're
that we have a
fantastic.
partner because that was the other thing we always struggled with, David, was that I had to hire everyone and train everyone from the beginning. And so now it's nice to actually have students come in who know what a visualization is and they've had a data modeling class, and I don't have to
Yep.
start at the very beginning anymore. We still do a lot of training because we love to hire young people and mentor them and help them get their career going,
Yep.
but it's a different starting point than it was. And so we love that you're here and that Newman is growing this data space, and other colleges are too, but Newman has really done a great job in that space.
I think it's just fair to let folks know that you helped influence the growth of the data
Yeah.
modeling part
Well,
of our curriculum because
you
you helped
listened.
us really realize that.
Not
Well, I do
everyone
try to listen
listened.
well, right? Right.
So,
That addition to the curriculum has really benefited lots of our students. And then I have to say too that you've created a a place to work that I enjoy, sending people to apply and because I know they'll love it. So congrats on that and thank you.
oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
So we've talked about this some. When you come in, a client calls you, right? You've mentioned that a lot of times it's like when they've found themselves kind of needing help. And so what do you often find yourself having to really help a company accomplish when you move in and start assisting them with their data work?
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting in this space, and particularly in this region, is that the use of data inside an organization is sort of a new idea. It's novel. People think they should be doing it. They're not always sure how to do it. Most of the people we work with have tried to do something. They've tried to put something in place to try and advance their data culture, to build some kind of maturity. Um, and and so they've gotten started, but then they hit this brick wall because they don't necessarily know how to do it, what kind of team to put in place, what kind of skills their people need, what kind of questions they should be asking. And so they people make a lot of common mistakes. But so normally what we will find is that there's some things that they want to do, and then they just need some good vocabulary. They need to understand the breadth of the work that's going to happen, and then they need some help to figure out how to roadmap that forward. And they also, number one, have to understand that this is a change that's going to take some real investment over a period of time,
Yeah.
of both money and time. And so that's, it's hard, but it's like if you didn't have a finance system in your company and you wanted to put one in, you wouldn't just hire one intern to do that. You would
Right.
hire, you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
would have to work through that. You would have to put a system in, you would have to put people in, you'd have to put processes in, and you'd have to put a culture in that maintained that. And that takes time. And if nobody in your business had really done it before, you would have to take some time to build that into your culture so that it would be sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a couple of times when I've had usually, a smaller operation, sometimes a nonprofit or a public entity call and ask for a data intern. And I try to ask questions like, so is this focused enough for an intern to actually come in and help with a
Mhm.
small piece, et cetera. And it always happens that the complexity of what the intern finds is just like nobody understands what they're asking this
Mhm.
intern to do. And it's pretty amazing. But then on the other hand, so after an organization determines to go ahead and do the work, they find value in what gets done, right? So when they start getting the data insights that they truly need, they find enough value, and soon enough they're like investing to get more of that, right? Because they're finding
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, and we try to start small because, we're
Mhm.
not going to say, hey, go in and let's put the whole thing in place and let's put a whole plan in.
Right.
Try to
Yeah.
start small so they can see if there will be an ROI, which there always is.
Yep.
With us, we don't want to do a project if it's not going to have some kind of return on that investment because they're not
Yep.
going to be happy with it.
Hmm.
And then they're not going to be a happy customer. So we try and be good partners and help them understand, what kinds of questions and things will help. But a lot of times, here we don't talk about data driven here. We talk about data informed because we
Yeah.
think that leaders in these companies, they know where they want to go. They have ideas about it. What they don't know is the data supporting that, or
Mhm.
if if they've already started on that process, are they making progress? And the data should help them be able to see that. So we love to work with leaders who are thinking about, they know where they want to drive their business. They just need some data to help them make sure that they do it in the right way, they mitigate risk, and then they maybe can take advantage of some things that they don't know going forward.
Yeah.
So all of that there. So once we find leaders like that, man, then people always say, well, what's going to happen when you get their data culture in place? Did they ever go away? Well, some things lessen. We do less infrastructure building, but they've seen so much ROI, they get hungry for more. How can they build and do something different, or how can they integrate and use AI in order to set themselves apart in a different way than their competitors? So it seems like once they start feeding that, it grows for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So one of the things that I've witnessed is often an organization doesn't understand the work required to collect and organize and prepare the data that's needed to do good analytics, right? And we've talked both about how that early in the process, usually an organization is going to need both an analyst and an engineer, and the engineer is more hands-on with preparing
Mhm.
and gathering and prepare and making that data ready for analytics. And it takes a certain kind of person, right, with a certain kind of skill set to do that. Um, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that realization that we're going to need some help with engineering, right? And then along the way, straightening out the flow of data so that we can depend on it, et cetera. And then ultimately, we need to get to the topic of data modeling before we're done here.
Yeah, well, this is we have a drawing that we draw at almost every new client prospect meeting because it's so true that this happens everywhere. But the first thing they'll often do is hire an analyst and ask them to build some dashboards. And so the analyst will go out to this spreadsheet or the ERP or the accounting system and pull some data in, and they'll make decisions about how that data gets put into the system. And often they don't model it, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but they don't model that data. They just bring it in and then they start building things. And the process that they use to do that is very manual. And it's a little error prone because there's nobody else helping them think through it. And sometimes they don't have all the maybe SQL skills or the data skills to do that piece because they're really good visualizers, but they're not
Right.
necessarily good at that piece. Or they're really good at that piece, but not the visualization. So you get, one or the other. There are very few people who can do all of it because most people haven't been trained in all of it. And it's just gotten to be such a big issue. So one thing that we see is that analysts, then they're a little successful. So people ask them to do more. And so now they
Hmm.
have more reports and they have more reports and they have more reports. And now they're trying to keep all of this manual process going and they can't go on vacation. They can't be sick. We had a guy tell us, I can't go to the dentist's office because I didn't have my laptop on and I was getting calls while I was getting my cavity filled about that they couldn't get to something that they had to have. And it's a risk for the business too, because if something does happen to that person, then they can find themselves without the reports they need to run their business. So we've had calls saying, this person left the company. We thought everything was okay, but today nobody on the floor knows what they're supposed to make. And that's a real problem. That's a
Wow.
that's an unforced error. You don't
Yep.
want that to happen. So it's bad for the employee because eventually they don't like that. At first it might feel, like great that you're getting all this accolade, but eventually it becomes too much for people to
Yep.
bear and they burn out, and it's a risk for the company because they've got all this on a person who now can't have this good work-life balance. So and then the other thing so then they hire a second analyst, and that analyst goes out to the same set of data and they make a model, but they make a different interpretation of that data and they pull it in a meeting to their audience. So pretty soon what happens in that situation is you're sitting in a meeting and you're arguing about whose data is right, and it all came from the same source, but maybe they each declared a shipping date differently, or they recognize revenue differently. And now all of your meeting is arguing about the data, not about what the data tells you, but what's right. And so
Yep.
that we hear that all the time, and we'll draw a picture. We draw a picture for that in our office. I've drawn it hundreds of times, and every time I draw it, everyone in the room says that's what's happening to us because it just is so common. It's so people, if you're listening to this and this is you should not feel bad because I'm telling you, hundreds of customers we talk to have the same problem. It's very common. And so then that's when we will help them understand how you can build an infrastructure with people who know how to do that and have analysts attach into it. And so then the ship date is always the same for everyone, and they're not making that decision for you. The other piece of that is these unicorn analysts that can do all of it or think they can do all of it, they tend to cost a lot more in salary. And so you've put a lot of money into that piece of your system and you're getting those bad results. And so, but analysts really are good. They should be good at asking questions about your company. They should understand your business processes. They should be thinking with you strategically about how the data can help you think about where you want to go and not worried so much about where the data is. That's what a data engineer, analytics engineer would be doing. And you really don't want them having to think about governance and all of that. You want that taken care of.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, so one of the benefits of having worked with you and some of our other employers of our graduates is that, they've all said, we need this combo skill set that involves understanding databases and SQL and data modeling, as well as understanding data interpretation and visualization. But to your point, we work really hard to make sure that the students understand all those parts of the picture, but they're going to have strengths in one way or the other, and it always
Mhm.
happens, right? One's more communicative, one's more business oriented, and one's more, kind of closer to a developer, but a data engineer is like hands-on with manipulating, right, those
Mhm.
processes that bring that data and get it ready. But the data modeling piece, right? We've had these concepts around for years, but it's often the missing piece of the puzzle for a lot of organizations. And I've heard, about your point about, we have competing definitions of terms, right? And so
Mhm.
you talk to a school system and why can't we get the right attendance number, right? And if you talk to a bank and it's like, well, we've got three different fields that are revenue and only one of them's right, right? Because we're pulling data from multiple sources, multiple databases, and you have to understand where it's coming from, right? And
Mhm.
then model how that comes in and which gets prepared for use in these reports, right? So talk a little bit about that data modeling piece and how you discovered its importance and the role it plays in getting things shipshape.
Sure. Well, so when I first started working with the more modern advanced analytics tools, some of the classes that myself and people that were working with me were taking, they always have, and it's the same when you're doing development, they always have the perfect database or the perfect set of data you're working with. So they would always use this thing called a star schema, but I didn't even know that's what it was called because that's what hadn't been in my background. And so the data was always that way. So when I started doing my own reporting on those tools, which I was really excited about the tools, but I'm like, why don't they work for me the way they work for other people? And I started investigating. And that's when I realized I was coming out of this world where data is normalized, transactional data. Um, and I was moving into this world where there's big data, there's millions of records, and I needed to be efficient and it needs to be optimized differently. And
Mhm.
that's when the light bulbs went off that there's some similarities to what I did on this side where I was flattening data to make sure that everyone used the same reporting, but it was different in the scale of the data that we were doing. And I couldn't just create queries and views to do it. I really had to store those tables. And that was a big change for me in some ways, but also if you've done one, you've highly normalized it. And I'm assuming technical people are watching this, right? So you've normalized
Yeah.
the data so you can store transactions. So, and I do this because credit card swipe, you don't want somebody
Yeah.
standing at the kiosk waiting for you to go put that in 5 places. It's got to be fast.
Mhm.
But that same system is terrible when you've got, terabytes of data that you're trying to go through to find an insight. So you have to take that data and really flatten it. And there are certain kinds of schemas that you can do that with. And there's different ones for different kinds of questions you're asking. And so really had to become a student and have our team be students of how and when to use which of those models. And then how do you take that normalized data and move it into that? What are the systems you have to put in place to do that? So what we get a lot is people have just taken that normalized data and stuck it in a Power BI and then um, and added some Excel to it, and then made whatever rules they thought might be
Yeah.
wise.
Mhm.
And we see a lot of nightmare stories. So because of so many people have struggled with the process in the first place. So what's nice about that is we get to see a lot of ways not to do it and then use that to help train our team and those analysts about why that's not the best way to do it and untangle it, right, for them.
Yeah.
Um, but it does sometimes it takes a long time to untangle what they were getting to do that.
Mhm.
So I think that answered, I'm not sure if that answered all of your question, but that's
No, it
the
does.
bulk.
Yeah. And so before the model's right, um, there are some willy-nilly choices being made, data's being pulled from multiple places, some of which may be more or less trustworthy. You can just
They,
imagine that's going to lead to,
yeah, they might be joining that data on something that they think is unique and it's not unique.
Mhm.
And so then they'll just say, let's distinct it all. And they just drop things. And so then you find out later that the system is randomly dropping rows. So one week it's dropping this one, and the next time you refresh it, it dropped a different one. So now your changes aren't stable across the system. So, and it's really interesting to me because the more data engineers and analysts and analytics engineers we hire, the more I can see the differences in the two groups of people and the things
Yeah.
they focus on. And it's not bad, it's just different. And so then my analysts are really focusing on the business problem and how do I get an answer and what's the business process. And my data engineers are really thinking about how did that data get in there. They don't necessarily know what the business process at the end that they're trying to make a decision is, but they know where all that data is and how it needs to get put into a specific kind of data model. And so if you ask them a business process question, they might not know. If you ask the analyst about where that data came from, they're like, I have to go ask the data engineer because they don't always know all of that. And so for us, it's been about we have to figure out how we translate that to the customer because we may only have one of those people on the call. And we want to make sure that, we don't, the customer that walks away thinking that our people don't know what they're doing because they do. They're just focused on very different pieces of the puzzle. So,
Absolutely. And I've seen, organization after organization from nonprofit to manufacturing organization to banking systems, right? They've all had to grow through this process of of eventually having at least one person on the engineering side, right, and one
Hmm.
person on the analytics side, or getting help, right,
Yeah.
from contracting for some of that work to help straighten it out, because it is a very specialized kind of set of questions, and you want the person who's asking, where did this data come from? How can we, is it dependable? Is it reliable? Is it right? Are we dropping records, right? Things like that.
Yeah.
And then you want the person who understands the business side, right? And wants to give business answers to good questions that drive the business forward.
Hmm.
So it's a lot that makes this a lot of fun. There's a lot of interesting problems to untangle and to help folks with. And so now, as I understand it, so your company has grown to the point that, I mean, what kinds of services are you now offering your clients?
Yeah, so we say that we're a full service firm. We do
Hmm.
everything, and which is really fun for me to be able to say after 16 years in business
Hmm.
that we
Yeah.
can, we build infrastructures for data. So all the data engineering, we can do that. We have analytics engineers who can do that work in between of taking that data and figuring out how we need to put governance around it so only the right people can see it and what are the business rules and the calculations that need to be made. And then we've got analysts who can step inside of a company and understand the questions their leaders are asking and help them build dashboards. What we really love is for clients to have their own analysts. And so in order to do that, we train them. So after they come out of a program like yours, then we try and sometimes one of the things we'll do is help them find a job in maybe another company. And then we'll do all the training for our client so that their people know the standards that we all agree on in that space for that particular client. And then we also do data culture maturity assessments. So we look at 7 dimensions that we've worked on you with that cover both the technical work that has to be done. And then inside your business, there's how do you get people to take this on and change? And so we call that adaptive work. It's really different. Every culture is different. We have to read it together and work together to figure that out. And then out of that work has come, we also do some work with some coaching and work with CEOs and the C-suite and executive leaders to help them understand how to do this inside their business. And that's been a lot of fun. You've been part of the data journey
Yeah,
cohort
it's
that
been a
we've
lot of
been
fun.
working on. We're getting ready to launch another cohort. And so we're building materials around that and training around that, which is fun. And then this year, Chris Wyatt has really helped us launch some places in into machine learning and manufacturing in order to use it for QA. Because with our partnership with Tech Systems Group, we have all these incredible system integrators that understand that there's data coming off of all these machines. And Chris and his team that he put together for these projects, they can actually read that data and they can tell you if the machine performed the way it was supposed to, and they can tell you what to look at if it didn't. And so we're really excited about that new business unit that's going to grow over this next couple of years because it helps in a place where there's going to be fewer people in the workforce and less experience as the older generations retire and it's a large generation retiring. So now here's some tools that can help you do that work that they could do by gut, but you don't have
Mhm.
that gut. So how can we help you be better at finding those problems before they get to your customer? So I'm really excited about that as well. All the machine learning and forecasting work that we're getting into and doing. So it's we can do anything here is really what's exciting.
Absolutely. It's a really fun time. I mean, from my perspective, as I talk with business owners and organizational leaders, right, just to watch them see the fruits of this work that as they start getting the results from their data efforts, and then watching them kind of grow through these pain points. But I really have the sense that this is helping really drive forward our regional economy, right? This is laying the groundwork for our next growth, I think, phase as a regional economy in this area.
Yeah, I think what's for me really exciting, and we kind of talked a little bit around data professionals and the meetup that's coming up. One of the things that's really exciting for me is I remember the first one I came to, or the first panel I came to, where you had 4 or 5 of us speaking, and I realized that there were other data people in Wichita because before that time, I really felt siloed
Yeah.
And I think because there weren't very many of us. And so as you see that group of people grow, and a lot of them are one or two or five people inside a company, and they don't have a lot of reach, and to be able to grow their networks and grow their professional learning and with each other, I think that's all good for the economy because it's going to help. It, and also just seeing the growth of it and knowing, okay, this is the infrastructure of people that you need in order to get where you want to go in our economy and in our region. So I'm so excited about data professionals and so happy that you started that. And
Yeah.
it's been great to partner with you on that at Cornerstone because we just think it's so good for data people to get together and see each other's growth. So,
Yeah.
and now we're not just us anymore. It's not just one person or two people out there.
Really not. No, that's been a real pleasure. It's so great and so great to connect students with professionals who are out there doing the work. And, of course, so of them find their paths into a career through those connections. So it's been invaluable. But yeah, I mean, it really feels like momentum building, for really, I think, growing our region. So I'm pumped about
Yeah.
that, and it's been fun to sort of be able to team up in these efforts with you, and so. Well, I think we need to plan a next one on data maturity. That's such a fascinating concept. But you've been putting out some work on that, so I'll provide some links to some of your work on that um, when we publish this video.
That'd be great. We have one of my goals this 12 months that started in October is for people to see that Cornerstone is not just Joy, it's a whole team of people. And
Yeah,
so the whole team has been doing videos. We've got a video series of several members of our team speaking about the different pieces of data maturity and what they look like. And so I'm really excited for those to get out there. And there's some Newman graduates in that group too.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really excited to see that get out there and see help people understand and share the wealth of knowledge we have here.
yeah. That's fantastic. All right. Well, we'll do this again. Thanks for this conversation today.
Thanks for the invitation.
Talk to you soon.